Good morning, members. It's just gone 10 AM. 22nd November, Wednesday, that is 22nd November. We're in Annandale Town Hall. A good chunk of us anyways, the rest are online. So, very warm welcome to Annandale and Eskdale Committee, which is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Council's website for public listening. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting the microphone, switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, write and speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you are in the hall, then you can do this on your phone, your iPad, or even lift your hand. Give me a nod, that would even do. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. All standard orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please enter leave in the Teams chat function for a period of time and then write join when you've rejoined the meeting. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please, if possible, provide reference points in regards to the page and the paragraph number, if that's possible. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative recommendations. First item on the agenda, first thing to do I think is to approve remote participation to members who are appearing remotely. But Tracy, can you give us a said and apologies, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. We've got 10 members present in total, 5 members present in person at Annandale Town Hall, being the Chair, Councillors Drybrough, Jamieson, Mail and Wilson, and 5 members present on Microsoft Teams, being the Vice Chair, Councillors Davis, McGregor, Marshall and Thompson. And I've got one apology from Councillor Karen Crothers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Tracy. So we'll try to work, so we're open and transparent to the public. Our first agenda item on the meeting after the minutes. So we'll just go to declarations of interest first. Any members got any declarations of interest? Councillor Mail?
Yeah, Chair. Page 31, 4.6.5, the Langham Primary. I'm Chairman of the Langham Alliance that's handling this transfer, but I didn't see it as one that's going to be controversial to discuss. So unless somebody starts to ask questions, I'll just stay in the room. If that's okay.
No problem whatsoever. As much a connection as anything, but you've captured that, Tracy. We're here to approve the... Sorry? Richard Brody's got it. Oh, sorry, Richard. Councillor Brodie.
Yeah, just Chairman of Ann Harbour Action Group, but it's a statement of connection, really, because I don't think we're going to make any decisions on that today. So, okay, thank you.
No problem whatsoever. Well done. Congratulations. We'll get to that point in time, Richard. So item number 3 is the minute of the last meeting is for approval. Are we happy to approve that minute? Get nodding heads within the room. Don't see anything. Richard's hand's still up, but I take that as historical. Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much. That's item number 3 is approved then. See, that's true reflection. Next item is number 4, which I don't think, I'll just get clarification. I don't think anybody's joined from the report authors as of yet. Is that the case? We'll speak to that. Or do we have any in the... Is that an un... No, have a wee check. Can I just check, Kath? Please, Kath, are you on this call?
I am, yes. I'm from Children and Families Social Work, here to represent them today.
Excellent. No, thanks very much. So what we'll do, for the sake of just waiting on the NHS catching up, we'll skip item 4 at the moment. We'll move to item 5, but a couple of words just before we get there. So it's Social Work Services Director end of year assessment of the business plans 2019 to 23 performance, and it's for the 1st of April 22 to the 31st of March 2023. Our next report is the annual performance report for the Social Work Services Director. I'm sure that members will have a view on the level of detail contained within this report, but I think this report is too general, with only one reference to Annandale and Eskdale within it. So we'll get to that point as we go through the questions. Can I request that officers consider this for the next report for this committee as more detail disaggregated to the local area rather than information applicable to the whole of the region would be far more useful to us and our local constituents. So, Kath, I've got a different, but it's Kath, you're here you're online rather than being in the hall, but you're here in regards to speak to this. I wonder, do you want to speak to this? Sometimes we go straight into questions, but I wonder just for the chance of local members getting a chance to get a broader view. We've already read the report, but just get a broader view. Do you want to speak to the report first, even at just 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to questions after that?
Yeah, of course. I suppose it's quite difficult to be more specific when the numbers in terms of our child protection registration are quite low in the Annandale and Eskdale area, which obviously then makes it there's a potential for that information not to be confidential. So just to sort of raise that as an issue if you're looking at more details. We've, over the last period, we've had a real focus on developing our staff. We've looked at, so during COVID, there was a period where we had a reduction in the amount of training we were able to offer to our staff. So over the past 18 months, we have provided 5-day child protection training, which was mandatory for all our social work staff and was attended by some of our multi-agency colleagues. We've continued to deliver signs of safety training, which is an approach that we and have implemented within social work, which is really looking at relationship-based practice. It's looking at identifying the strengths within families and using the existing networks within families to support children and their families so that we have a more sustainable plan for families and for children once social work involvement comes to an end. We've also undertaken training on child protection orders so that staff have a good understanding of when the threshold would be that we'd be looking for that emergency order to protect a child, and then how they would progress that order through the courts, and then in terms of sharing that information with parents and the children's hearing. We continue to look at how we support staff in a more trauma-informed way. So we're looking at undertaking trauma-informed training, and we've begun a programme of work. So there's a Safe and Together programme of delivery, which really looks at how we work with victims of domestic abuse. So it's focusing the emphasis on the behaviours of the perpetrator and how to support the survivor through their journey to changes in their life and reduce the risk to children and to survivors of domestic violence. Those are programmes that continue to be delivered and we're implementing within social work. From a child protection view, we've made quite significant progress. The numbers of children's names have reduced. We are in quite a positive position in that the work that we're undertaking has led to no children's names being placed back on the register after there's been a period of registration, which is an indicator that the plans that we're putting in place are sustainable in reducing risk to children. So within the multi-agency safeguarding hub, the number of referrals remains static. We have had an increase in number of older children who have been placed on the child protection register, and some of the categories that have sort of increased for us are around neglect, parental and carer mental health, and I suppose that's understandable. The cost of living crisis and the impact and the continuing impact that COVID's had on our families. Again, when we look at the registration, we're looking at emotional abuse, physical abuse, and neglect as being the most prevalent vulnerabilities that we're finding, and I think that again reflects all of the the COVID impact and the crises that we're having in terms of families managing day-to-day living following that period. Staffing continues to be an issue for us. I think that's a national issue. We're finding it much harder to recruit social workers. We've had a recent interviews for senior social workers, and we've found it more difficult to recruit senior social workers. So that puts us in a more challenging position in that we're trying to deal with more complex work without the staff that we need to do that work. So that creates some issues for us, and I suppose puts more pressure on the staff that we have undertaking the work.
Thanks so much, Kath. Is that you? Take it is it?
Yes, I think for me that would be an update. Has anybody got any questions?
Yeah, actually, I would think we will have. Thanks very much for that, Kath. Just went through them with the pause. So, Councillor Driver first, Archie, then Councillor Jimison.
Yeah, thanks, Kath, for taking us through that. I'm presuming that you weren't the one that was supposed to take us through it. Somebody else was supposed to be here and take us through it. And you know, it's hard on you. This is you know, derogative remarks to yourself for taking us through this particular matter. But it would have been nice to see somebody senior come along and deliver this, understanding that social work is obviously pretty busy at the moment. There's two particular points I want to raise with you, Kat, and if you can't answer them, please just get some word back to me by email or something like that. And it's the unpaid work scheme. I mean, I've managed to visit them over the summer this year, and it's great what they're trying to do up there, and I know that a lot of those that are on the unpaid work scheme are helping out local charities and things like that to try and get their hours in as quickly as possible. So, you know, a big well done to them. The second part is on the recruitment side of things. And social work had a grow your own system in place for many years, and I'm just wondering where that is at the moment, if we're finding it difficult to recruit social work staff. Do we still have a grow your own system in place, or what's going on?
So in relation to your first question, I can't answer about unpaid work. You would, and I'm not sure if anybody's present from Justice Services, but it would be Justice Social Work that you would need an update. So I'm not aware of, and I'm not involved in anything in relation to unpaid work. In relation to your second question, yes, we continue with our Grow Your Own scheme, and that continues to be successful, and we are looking at increasing the numbers of students. The people we are able to recruit are family support workers, and so as a career progression for family support workers, we have in place studentships that they can apply to each year. The number each year will vary, but that is recognised as a really helpful and an important way of us recruiting and retaining staff.
Thanks very much for that, Kath. Thank you, Archie, for the question. Councillor Jimison, it is George.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the report. And again, possibly these are questions you can't answer, but I'll fire them away anyway. I'm looking at page 27. It's partly to do with the report writing. Yes, we want to know the successes and what the changes that have worked, etc., etc. But I'm really keen that the councillors are really well aware of the major challenges that social services have and where we need to be aware of where there's help needed, so that we can be cognizant of the challenges as well as the successes. And that's not to be judgmental, but there's an emphasis on identifying where we're doing things well and the restructuring that's made. And we use the word significant a lot, etc., etc. But we really need to know warts and all, so that we are aware and not sanitised in any way about what's going on in social work, so that we can be realistic in our endeavours as politicians to try and help folk. I'm a broken record on this, and Stephen Morgan knows it well. All services are stretched, but the connectivity within services is quite relevant, very, very relevant, I think, to social services. And schools and social services are two examples of such a case. And I know lots of teachers and I know lots of LAs, they'll comment on early intervention. Children that come to school that clearly are not being well looked after, that they're dirty. I know one LA that's actually helping a child learn how to wash her face and clean her teeth. And when they look deeper into that, dad's unemployed, mum's not there, dad sleeps in, the wee lassie gets to school, and that's just one incident. So getting to the crux of my question is, how much can we get added value from social service and education and other services? But I'm looking at education. How can we make that work more effectively so that we get a 2 plus 2 that makes 5, and we get help from education to help social service and the serendipitous help that social service can give to education? I'm not convinced we're doing it well enough, and I'm pretty sure it's because of lack of resources that putting that early effort in to make sure that we have got teachers that are aware of the requirements of social services and vice versa. Because at the end of the day, these children are not getting the best education because they're not getting the best home life. And we've got 5 or 6 hours within school where it can potentially make a difference. But teachers need to know where their responsibility ends, where their skill ends, and where social service begins, and where the overlap is. So really my question is, how can we best use our resources in the council to help children, not only in the short term, but in the long term?
Question directed at myself or education? Sorry, I wasn't sure.
It's to both. I've spoken to education as well, but I know that Stephen's aware of this, Stephen Morgan, that is, and it's, I don't see it really developing, and I've got closer contacts with education than I have with social services. So I'm keen that social services see the benefit and the value in that carryover when the children go to school, and also the feedback that education professionals can give to social services in actually being part of that team approach and helping young people and indeed their parents and families. Some parents are frightened to get social services involved because of the fear they're going to be blamed, that sort of thing. One particular wee lassie defends her father to the hilt, but he's clearly under pressure. Now, where does confidentiality come in here? Where can a teacher approach social work and say, this wee laddie or this wee lassie's got a problem, can you quietly have a look at it, sort of thing? And there's sensitivities there, obviously, but sometimes help doesn't get to the child because the child's protecting the parent and vice versa. So it's how much social service can be proactive with education that is probably more relevant to you.
I think we have open communication with our education colleagues, and we spend quite a lot of time working together. In relation to working quietly with families, that's really difficult. We've got to be transparent with our families about why social work might be involved, and our education colleagues would need to be open and honest about any conversations with social work and any referrals to social work. So that is something that we need to happen, so that we're working openly and transparently with parents. But we do have an early intervention family support service within social work, which we can look at those sort of perhaps more, family support. How do we help? What sort of smaller, lower level interventions and help might prevent a child then coming into the attention of perhaps social work from a more negative perspective. We try that is a service where we are looking at supporting. I mean, all social work, all children and family social work is there to help and support families. That's absolutely our aim, and our key aim is to keep families together, keep children at home. And I know that's not always the public perception of our role, but we do try to support our education colleagues. We have monthly Getting It Right for Every Child locality meetings where agencies come together and we'll share practice issues, we'll share themes, and we'll look at what is available and what resources are there to help, so that we are coming together on a monthly basis, education, health and social work, and we're looking at some of the key themes in our different areas, and how we help and support one another. Within the Annandale and Eskdale area specifically, Annan Academy is piloting an Annan forum, which is a forum where we're looking at that early help and intervention where school might be stuck, and they might need a little bit of help from other agencies. So that involves different people from different agencies sitting around a table. They might talk about between 1 and 3 cases per month, and those for those cases that they bring in, the cases that they think they've exhausted their own resources but are looking for help and support from other agencies, and the school will have spoken to the parent and the child and gained consent for their situation to be discussed within that forum, and the agencies around the table look at where is the best place for the child to access help. And that's actually been really successful in trying to, I suppose it's early days in terms of how that will work generally, and there's some evaluation of that taking place. But it's what's happening is that what we see is children are getting the help and support they need from that forum. Different agencies will take that referral away and agree to a piece of work. So that's some of the work that we're doing to try and get the help to children and families when they need it, and in supporting each other to undertake the work when we're all really struggling in terms of capacity.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. Through the chair, what I would like to see, I'm aware of the top line of Annan Academy because I met with the Parent Council recently and I'm meeting with the head teacher, and I think it's a really good project. I would like to see that more detail on that in front of this committee so as we can make further, get greater knowledge and information from that sort of approach. But beyond that, the council is setting up a subcommittee on poverty. And the attainment gap's a big part of that, and it goes back to the need for all services to work together. So what I would like to see is more information on just how successful schools and social service are working at the moment and what more we can do to enhance that. Because there's still, from my experience and asking in schools, that there's children there that are disadvantaged. The social services are aware of it, and the child's still with the parents, but it's really affecting their ability to perform at school. So it's getting, for counsellors, it's getting a better understanding of what's being done and how we can enhance it. And if it's a shortage of resources, then that's something that we'll have to look at. So that's what I would ask Ian, is that we have some sort of feedback on what actually is happening and what is not sufficient in their eyes, so that we can make some sort of political judgment on resources, etc.
Right, excellent. What I was wanting to do at the end is, it's not under any other business. When the meeting closes, Councillor Mail's already raised an issue in regards to having a report back on housing, how we deliver affordable housing element, Langham in particular. He's talking about the Murtham site, and I think I've got a personal view in regards to Borderlands. Let's see what's happening locally, Chapel Cross site, and if you're saying that as well, George, I think just even a 5-minute discussion after the meeting, it's almost part of an agenda setting for the next committee if we can. Get that type of report coming to committee rather than just these performance.
No, that's grand.
Yep, no, excellent. No, thanks so much for that, George. Thank you for that as well. Kath, we've got Councillor Stephen Thompson next. Councillor Thompson, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think I probably echo your initial words just about, that level of detail we'd expect for Annandale and Eskdale, but I'll have a go anyway. So 4.2.2, it says about the community payback numbers are high, so I don't think it would be particularly in a sort of issue of sort of necessarily identifying people. So I'm just wanting to try and get a sense of what sort of numbers are we seeing, both regionally, and how that breaks down for Annandale and Eskdale, and are we reaching the KPI target of 90%, not just regionally but locally? You know, so it's that local relevance again. And then the second bit would be on 4.2.4. Again, it's talking about delivery is high across the region, suggesting there's a fair amount of numbers that would reduce the risk of identifying anybody. But again, what sort of numbers are we talking about? And what is the increase, and what does that look like for Annandale and Eskdale specifically? And then 4.2.5, again, what sort of increase in the numbers of personal placements are we seeing generally? So that's just, again, probably helps allow for anonymity. And in particular in Annandale and Eskdale, if we could get a sense of that, is there a similar improvement in this locality as well compared to previous periods? And finally, at 4.3.2, again, I suppose numbers of referrals to child MASH and those on the register, which you did touch on in your update at the start. I appreciate it can be sensitive, but there's generally a region-wide number which would be in the tens anyway, so probably wouldn't identify anybody. But if there is information that relates to Annandale and Eskdale, again, is that remaining steady, or is there an increase in that? So it's really just to get a sense of that locality information. Thank you.
I can apologise, I can't answer any of your questions in relation to justice services. I'm able to speak to the numbers on the Child Protection Register, which remain fairly consistent, but on a weekly basis, the numbers, you know, there'll be children whose names are removed from the register and children whose names are placed on the register. So whilst the numbers do fluctuate, they remain fairly static. And currently, I think the numbers would be across the region in about 45, 46.
Okay, no, thanks, Kath. I appreciate you. You can only answer certain questions, but Chair, through yourself, I mean, maybe you'll come back to this at the end, as you said, but I think we probably are looking for, you know, local information that we can get answers to, basically, and it might just be that we need to, you know, you know, additional people to speak to the report to cover what the report's actually talking about, because it's kind of a lot to put on Kath if she's kind of speaking to a report that she can't answer all the questions to, and that's no fault in Kath. But so that would be my feedback there, Chair. Thank you.
No, thanks very much for that, Stephen, and yourself as well, Kath. We see you're in a precarious position. You don't have to justify. That's one thing that you don't have to do, but try to answer questions that you haven't actually. You're not the report author, but obviously in your backgrounds in children and families in particular, and not the justice system. So we absolutely accept that, and we'll use an alternative route in which to make sure, whether it's yourself with support or different people here, to make sure that they can speak to the report with this level of question. But certainly no blame level at yourself whatsoever, so you can relax about that. So Councillor Marshall, Sean, you're next. Sean.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I had a couple of points, but I actually raised the first one about grow your own, and I welcome the fact that we're still continuing that because it has been successful in the past. I don't know if you can answer this one either, but it was just, I think you did touch on it as well about the child protection register, and it had reduced, but you know, you're also saying that it kind of remains quite static as well. It's just in relation to, obviously, some of these children will require to go into foster care. And I'm just wondering that certainly I think Social Services Committee recently, there is still an issue with the amount of foster carers we have in the region, despite harmonisation and an increase in the allowance across Scotland. But we're still faced with actually placing some of these young people in other local authorities. My main question is that I know that the proactively looking to recruit additional foster carers, but also certainly I know a couple that used to foster care in Dumfries and Galloway, but because of the allowance and disparity in allowances, they went to Barnardo's. They're now just, you know, they're providing that foster care across in Cumbria, and I'm just wondering, apart from proactively trying to recruit new foster carers. Is there anything that we're doing to maybe reach out to these foster carers that used to be, they used to have that presence in Dumfries and Galloway, but have moved away? Is there anything that we're doing to maybe try and encourage them back with the increased allowance?
So I know we're actively recruiting, as you say. I don't know whether we're actively going to foster carers who were with us and encouraging them back now the allowance has increased. That's something that would be sat with our fostering and adoption team, which is not the area that I specifically work in. That's something that I can find out and come back with information about. What I can tell you is that Galloway is not alone in its struggles to recruit and place children in foster care. There's a national shortage of foster carers, and that is causing us issues in terms of finding the right placements for some of our children, and that does mean that on occasions children will be placed in placements out with the region. We are really trying to work towards increasing the number of foster carers and looking at how we support children to return to our region. We really don't want our children to be moved out of the region when they've lost sort of everything else, that they have to move out of the region isn't what we would want to advocate for them. So it is an issue. It's not an issue that Dumfries and Galloway alone are facing currently.
Thanks for that, Kath. And if you could kind of maybe just feedback, if they are doing anything to encourage previous foster carers that operated in the region, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Kath. Thanks so much for that, Sean. I don't think we have any further questions. Some of my questions have been asked, but a brief one. So I will ask it anyways. For a while, you probably can't answer it, Kath, but it's the level of positive outcomes from our community payback. That was a general question. What did that look like in general terms? And see, you've got the MASH team. If ever you get a failure in service, so to speak, 9.9 times out of 10, they'll say, listen, communications, multi-agency, obviously, as you've already said, it's a failure in communications between the agencies is one of the reasons for the failure in service. So I'm just wondering, could you expand or tell me about what the cross multi-agency communications is like within the MASH team? So whether it was a mental health, whether it was police, whether it was children's services within NHS, or whether it's kind of the council themselves, how do you actually operate, function? How can you give me the assurance that level of information is being shared with the right people at the right time to provide the best service?
Okay. Again, apologies, I can't answer your justice social work question, but I can answer the MASH question. I'm social work lead for Child MASH, and what we do is on a weekly basis we have a MASH managers meeting. So that brings together the social work leads for Child MASH and Adult MASH. It also brings together the Child Protection Advisor manager who oversees both to undertake child and adult initial referral discussions, and it brings together the police manager. So we meet on a regular basis. It's weekly. We look at any issues that have occurred that week. We look at any themes that we need to look at. We, on top of the weekly meetings, when we're looking at any day-to-day practice issues or challenges, we also then undertake, from a child MASH perspective, monthly audits of our initial referral discussions and of our child protection investigation. So we take a sample and we review those, and we will then look at decision making. From a social work perspective, I then spend time with my team and we look at the decision making. We look at where maybe there's perhaps differences of opinions or where plans might have been looked at in a different way, so that we're reviewing our work on a regular basis. It's probably fair to say that the MASH work is highly scrutinised in terms of editing and reviewing of the work that's undertaken. And we have, on a 6-weekly basis, development sessions with the workers who work in MASH. So the MASH managers will support development sessions on individual, child and adult MASH bases, and then we come together as a joint MASH team to look at development sessions, so that we're looking at how we work together collectively and how we improve the service. We also, I've lost my train of thought then there.
It's all right, Kath, because I'll put a scenario to you just to try and add. So a number of years ago, we did a audit risk and scrutiny. I say we audit risk and scrutiny committee did a scrutiny review in regards to information sharing across all agencies, multi-agencies. So what we expected to come from that was a 24-hour accessibility. So whether it was social work access and NHS records, police to a degree, or everything. Some things are restricted, obviously, but in particular, it was the Health and Social Care Partnership, which obviously you're a part of now, and how, so say it was an out of hours child, you've come across a scenario where a child's in crisis and you need to access that information 2 o'clock in the morning. Is it sitting on the table? It sounds like it is at the moment, or can you access that electronically, and the level of information what's required to make some of them very, very difficult decisions that you make? That's where I'm probably coming from more than anything. So.
Yeah, from an out of hours perspective, we've got social work out of hours service. They will, they have access to social work systems, and they will look at the information they need. They will liaise with their colleagues in health and social work, and they will put in place a safety plan until social work and police and health can look at that through the MASH systems at the first opportunity, whether that be Monday or whether that be after, the first day after a bank holiday. So there are systems in place out of hours to keep children safe.
So I suppose the bit I was really drilling it, and I think you've answered it indirectly, is can you access electronically information from, supposed to a degree from the police, but it was in particular on Health Social Care Partnership, working relationship between NHS and Council. So can you access the appropriate information electronically that you need on a 24-hour basis from NHS in particular? And it sounds like you're actually sitting on the table. You can put a plan into place, you can make things work, but for that furthest and fullest information, you've got to go through like a verbal / email communication.
It's not an email communication. What we would do is we would go through that multi-agency safeguarding hub at the earliest opportunity to go into the level of detailed information that we would need for planning and making decisions around whether we're looking at child protection processes or not from a childcare perspective.
No, excellent. Thanks so much for that. That's an excellent answer.
I suppose the bit that I've lost my train of thought, there's an escalation process. So if our officers within the multi-agency safeguarding hub can't come to a decision after they've discussed information, there is an escalation process, which means that managers are available to look at the information and they will come together and I mean, it's very rare that we actually have to do that, but there is an escalation process, so that if we don't have agreement about whether something should be progressed in terms of child protection or not, then we have that framework that looks at that, and it's a fairly quick look, so that we're not creating delay for children.
Thanks, Kath. Full answer. Excellent. Listen, thanks very much for your time this morning. We've just got to go through our recommendations of hang fire until we've done that, just to make sure that in case somebody else comes in with something. But appreciate your coming here on the short notice. Members, we've been asked 2.1 to review the overall summary performance within the Chief Social Work Officer's business plan, Annandale and Eskdale, which we've done. We've been asked 2.2 to consider the additional area-based successes and developments as detailed in the key successes sections outlined in paragraphs 4.2 and 4.3, which I think we've done. Now, the third, I think maybe we try and capture, if we can, if it's possible, so that this is 2.3, consider any aspects of performance to be referred to the relevant future social work committee. But I think that the one point we do want to capture here, if we can, Stuart, maybe we need a bit of help, maybe yourself and as well, Tracy, but it's been put in an awkward position, so have the members of the council through this area committee in regards to asking questions that are unable to get answered. We've got different mechanisms. We'd actually defer this item, come back to it in a week or a fortnight or whatever we want, but I think maybe we need to send a strong message back to the social work directorate and maybe even the chief social work officer that listen, it's unacceptable, and in future reports we need the people who are able to answer the questions around the table at the right time. Stuart, can you help with that, and Tracy if required?
Thanks, Chair. There's a few points. I've captured quite a lot of operational actions which Kath was obviously unable to answer, which we'll take up offline and we'll put them into the action tracker. Members also noted that they would like to see more local information in the report. So what we've done at other area committees is we've minuted that we've made a further agreement to request that future performance reports include more detailed information focusing specifically on local areas, on the local area rather than the region as a whole. So I think that's something that members had mentioned as well. And what you've just mentioned, Chair, we could also capture that the appropriate officers are requested to attend future area committees to speak on all aspects of the report rather than just specific sections of the report, and we can also take that up through governance as well.
Anything to add? No, nothing to add. Listen, Kath, that was absolutely excellent. Thanks so much for filling that gap for the day. We really do appreciate it, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. Take care.
Sorry, just hold on a second. Councillor Thompson's wanting another thing, is it? Stephen, sorry, missed that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. It was just in terms of the actions to follow up. I mean, I feel that I feel that this point it's no reflection on Kath, so apologies. Feel free to leave. But I feel like we've asked for this type of information before, in terms of that sort of disaggregation of information for Annandale and Eskdale, and it wouldn't be the first time we've made this type of request. I just feel there's maybe something not quite getting processed properly, so we're getting the information we're asking for at Annandale and Eskdale, and I'm sure other localities will be having the same issue. It's not a new issue, so I'm just wondering if we could also, I'm certainly happy to raise it through leaders panel or something like that, just to, you know, feedback from the ground up and also from the top down, because it just feels like whether it's business bureau or leaders panel or something like that, so we know that we're actually getting local reports at locality level. This isn't a new request, and I think that's what's concerning maybe. Thank you.
No, thanks very much for your contribution, Stephen. And we're leader heavy in the Annandale and Eskdale, aren't we? So, I mean, it would be yourself, it would be Archie, and obviously Gail. Gail's on the line as well. Gail, I don't know if you want a contribution in regards to that, but I mean, it'd be very helpful if the leaders of all groups, but Gail, if you've got a chance, if you're able to come back to that.
Yeah, happy to do so, Ian. I'll catch up with Stephen and Archie and co.
Thank you very much for that. Archie, fine with that. Archie's nodding as well.
I'll raise it, Chair, as well as there too.
Thank you. So I would imagine if our three leaders, Annandale and Eskdale, raise that, we will get progress. But we will, the chair and vice chair of this committee will also raise that and take it through our natural processes. There's I think it's a few months before we meet up naturally with the senior leadership team, which is for the chief executive down to directors. We normally have these kind of discussions at those private meetings. But so in order to get the ball rolling, I think Stephen's absolutely right. Councillor Thompson's wanting back in, Stephen, but I think if you three can start that ball rolling, we'll almost play catch up and make sure that's enforced. Stephen, do you just want to come back in?
We might even have 4 leaders in Annandale and Eskdale, but just want to double check that.
Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I'm still the leader. I haven't been deposed yet.
No, sorry, Richard. That's just my ignorance. Not the first time we called ignorant. Right, excellent. That's it. So we've captured that. We moved on to item number 4. Steph, just make sure that you're on the line for this report before we go into it. Well done, spot on.
Morning, everybody, and I've got Barbara Aiken, my social work colleague here as well. Thank you.
Excellent, spot on. So we've got Steph and Barbara. That's ideal. Right, you've lost 4 points already out of 10 for being late. So you'll make a good job, I'm sure. So item number 4 is the Health and Social Care Performance Management Report for the area committees. Our business meetings. The This report today is Health and Social Care Annual Performance Report and covering the period from April 22 through to March 23. I'm pleased to note some update on development of the home teams and the work of the community link workers. Steph Morton and Barbara's here today, actually. I've got a different email, and Barbara's here today to answer any questions that we've got. I note the number of people in Annandale and Eskdale who experienced a delay in discharge from hospitals rose from 270 compared to from 198 last year. We'll talk more about this as we go forward. Hopefully we'll get some, I'll ask you to do a presentation. Hopefully you'll be able to touch on that point as you go through. And also I note updates in relation to developments of housing, care and support in Langham and Moffat, which members I know have a keen interest in abreast of the recent months announced. Could you provide any further? We'll come to that because I know a number of councillors here have got particular questions in regards to the housing, how that's progressing. I think we're having a future report just on that itself. So, Steph, if you don't mind, I'll ask you to do a 5–10 minute presentation and then we'll open up to questions after that.
Thank you, and apologies, the day job got in the way this morning in terms of system pressure, so that's why we're running late this morning, but I do apologise for that. So first of all, I'd just like to outline, probably in the back of what you were just talking with, the Kath that was in before. The report that you've got in front of you is a retrospective report, and that's quite difficult for ourselves to present on that because it's up till March, and I think at our attendance at the other area committees, Annandale and Eskdale being the last one of this round, we found that the information contained in the report isn't necessarily what the area committee is looking to discuss. However, what I would point out is the information contained in the report and the indicators have been set by the IJB for the Health and Social Care Partnership. So any direction to change that needs to go up through the governance route of the IJB. What I have suggested to the other area committees is that we perhaps in 2024 commence workshops directly with the area committee members on themed topics, which I think will help aid the understanding for the area committee and allow that kind of space for us to get into the detail of things, which we can't do at area committee because that's not necessarily what we're presenting on. So I just wanted to lay that out on the table first and foremost, and that invitation's there if you want to take that up throughout 2024. It'll come as no surprise that obviously, as I say, this is retrospective, but we have, in terms of the adoption of our home teams, we celebrated our first anniversary, and there's been much progress made in terms of that multidisciplinary team setting, whereby we've got a practitioner of the day in place, and all referral routes are coming through into a single point of contact in the home teams. We also have started a test to change with our paramedic colleagues, our Scottish Ambulance Service, in terms of a rapid response linked in with our home teams, whereby our SAS colleagues are able to refer direct into our home teams rather than convey somebody to hospital if they have fallen. And that obviously prevents hospital admission, but also provides that early intervention and prevention that our home teams pathways can support. We have had a focus in terms of our public health improvement team. Early intervention and prevention is very keen. It's very important. The difficulty we do have, and I'm sure you'll understand this when you're dealing with system pressures in the here and now, it's very difficult to get into that space of that early intervention and prevention agenda, which when I talk about that, I'm referring to system-wide, but also the wider partnership in terms of education from birth right through to cradle in terms of that early intervention. And I think we need to start changing the narrative and how we talk round about that, because we really need to start to invest that resource into that agenda, because that will help the future here and now and address some of the system pressures. We have our community link workers who are very much part of our work directly with our home teams, but are also based in your local GP practices. And again, that they have a focus on that early intervention to support people before they either hit crisis or before they even are referred into a home team, and that's working directly with them and what support their own communities can provide them, but also the support mechanisms that are in place for our individuals, because if you remember, we all have a responsibility for our own health and social care, as well as the Health and Social Care Partnership delivering managed services in that regard. Our care and support at home division was newly created, and that was as a result of our system pressures, whereby care and support at home is extremely important in sustaining that care at home market. In particular, as you know, we have our providers, our care at home providers are all independent businesses. We have our in-house service, CAS. CAS provide 20% of the market share of care at home, with our independent providers providing 80%. You'll appreciate that when we're working with independent businesses, we can encourage and work very closely with them, but we cannot dictate or direct put directives in, but we do have a collaborative in place with the care at home providers, and that is working extremely well in terms of that communication and joined up working. And what we've seen with that, we've seen a 27% increase in people receiving care at home packages as a result of that collaboration. Right Care, Right Place is the programme in relation to your bed base. So that is looking at the bed base in its entirety. So that looks at our cottage hospital beds, our care home beds, and also understanding keeping people at home in their own beds as well. The Right Care, Right Place phase 1 was completed, and the report went to IJB in September this year, with the introduction of 31 flexible beds across the region. And phase 2 consultation engagements about to start with the communities. I think it's commencing in December, and there's workshops being identified directly with area committees, but also with the communities themselves. Our care homes continue to be, as you can imagine, we're trying to sustain the care at home market, but we're also trying to sustain the care home market. And again, all our care homes in D&G are independent businesses, and they vary from small independent businesses to corporate businesses supporting the homes. We do have a care home tactical team and a care home oversight group who work directly again in collaboration with the care homes. But you'll appreciate that there's quite a demand on care home beds as we see people in our system. The acuity of their illness and the complexity of their illness is warranting a care home bed much sooner in their journey than previous. And again, 10 years ago, in a care home setting, you probably could make your own cup of tea and get out to the paper shop. And I'm not being, excuse me, that may sound flippant, but the point I'm trying to make here is the complexity of people in our care homes now are significant compared to they were 10 years ago. And obviously people are living longer, and we're seeing the length of stay in a care home much longer than it was anticipated even 5 years ago. The indicators are there in terms of the outcomes that have been set by the IJB, and I'll just touch on the indicator in terms of the delayed discharges. So that equates to 270 people over the year period, but just to put that into context for you, at today's setting, we currently have 38 people from the Annandale and Eskdale region with the postcode DG10 up to DG16 who are delayed in hospital. And also we have people in our community who are delayed awaiting a package of care. As I've said, the indicators as well, we have gleaned from our previous visits to area committees this time round that the indicators that are being presented are perhaps not the indicators that area committee in the future would like to see, but it is unfortunate at this point in time, this is our template that we have to use. And I'll just stop there. Barbara, do you want to add anything in terms of social work, particularly the indicators around about the carers or SDS options that might help the committee?
In relation to the SDS options, maybe Steph, I mean, we're trying to do a piece of work around at the minute. Maybe this is useful for the committee to know around how we bring in an independent advice and support element locally, which will hopefully, I guess, support the social work staff to kind of work with people around those 4 options, particularly option 1 and 2, and hopefully increase the uptake of those. So hopefully, if that's why I was late this morning. I was in a discussion around that. Hopefully, if we could move that forward, we can start to actually, I guess, increase people's knowledge and understanding of option 1 and 2, support PAs, and basically increase the uptake on those. So that's part of the actions round about that. It's maybe just useful for the committee to know that. That's the only bit I'd probably add in there, Steph.
That's excellent. Thanks to both of you. That last wee piece of information stimulated a few thoughts for myself in regards to people. I know I've just went from, I think, from 3 to 1, actually, as I've chosen that self-empowerment, you could say, approach. So Councillor Driver and Mail, then Marshall. So Archie, you're first.
Thanks very much, Stefan, for your presentation here. I think first of all, I would welcome the opportunity to get around the table outside the area committee to discuss what's actually going on. And with regards what's going on, I've always said that prevention is better than cure in some of the issues that we deal with, and you'll be aware that there's that old saying that the NHS will look after you from the cradle to the grave, and you know, sometimes the grave is actually in the hospital, which you can't get out, and you've got some real issues there. So looking at the community link side of things, I used to work with the community link guys at SONUS, for instance, in Annandale and Eskdale, and I thought it was a brilliant sort of service, getting out into the community, stopping people going into hospital because of the support that those guys could actually bring down. I'm presuming that's still the same, but also got the GP added into that link as well, and that will come with the right care, right place package that you've been talking about. Obviously, one of the issues of prevention is having good housing as well, and that I would imagine that's going to be a few questions today, especially with things like Murtham and Langham, and I'm sure Dennis will cover that better. My other role as the Armed Forces champion, GPs, for instance, have started a veterans registration service in some areas of Scotland, and the Veterans Minister, Graham Day, who's also the Education Minister, has asked all GPs to have this Veterans Registration Service. I don't know if we have it. I think we have in one of the Annan surgeries, the Annan South surgery as opposed to Annan North surgery, but I'm just wondering where that is as well. Understanding this report is a previous report as opposed to a future report, but I certainly welcome the opportunity to discuss round the table about how we take things forward in a less formal manner, shall we say.
I don't know if anyone wants to reply to Archie's points there.
Yeah, so I'll just take, so the first point about the community link, you're absolutely right. They're fundamental to actually people self-managing and also reaching out to what's in everybody's own community on their front doorstep. They are based within the GP surgeries, but in the majority of, and that is about catching people that's maybe coming into the GP surgery for other things, but there's an element roundabout where a community link worker could support. So it is fundamental. The other part of this is where community link workers can play within the hospital setting. We automatically default into a care package, but actually there's a bit before that care package, and we have been, we did test during COVID the role of the community link worker within the ward setting, but also we think there's a place at the front door of the hospital in A&E for people that are coming in, and if there's other things going on, we can catch them very early in terms of that early intervention and prevention. With regard to the armed forces question, I'm unable to speak to any specifics round about that, but there's certainly within the health and social care part. I can't speak for the GPs. Again, bearing in mind that GPs are the same as our care homes and our care at home. They're independent businesses that we contract. But there is a lead identified for the Health and Social Care Partnership, who's Valerie White, who's the Director of Public Health, and it's maybe worth linking direct with her on that in terms of the veteran agenda. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Steve. This is me thinking top of my head sort of stuff, not thinking through, and you know, I get these impulses every now and again. And we just had a meeting yesterday with Citizens Advice Chief Exec, and one of the issues of, again, reducing the opportunity for people to go in is poverty. And you've got the community link workers there at the hospital. I just wonder if there's an opportunity for you guys to talk to Citizens Advice on benefits and things like that people actually need. They might not know they're entitled to, but if you've got that sort of one-stop place where, you know, everything can help people's health, because, you know, mental health does have a physical regard when mental health causes problems. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for you guys to talk to Citizens Advice and maybe have a look at opportunities for them in the future to stop people getting into hospital because of illnesses that's been brought on due to mental health.
Lots of nods there, Archie, so whoever wants to, do you feel that's appropriate to answer?
Yeah, I think, so just in general terms, and you'll probably know that yourself in terms of working in the SONAS team, there should be signposted and direct links with Citizen Advice for the community link, and I'm sure they do reach out in terms of signposting people to that. The other thing we do have is specifically round about carers and the carers agenda. So within the hospital setting, the Citizens Advice and the carers centre are based within there. So that there is a way of a signposting direct into that as well. And the third element that might be of interest to you is for the integrated cancer journey. So for somebody that is experiencing that, is presenting on a cancer pathway, we are very much focused on the clinical element of that pathway in the past. But what we found is for most people, the worry and the stress is round about the other parts, which is not the clinical bit. The clinical bit is the easy bit for them, meeting with the doctor, the nurse, etc. The hardest part is the other aspects, it impacts on their life. And there are we have a link worker specifically round about that cancer pathway, supporting people with the holistic elements of concern. And again, Citizens Advice Bureau should be part of that, because one of the things we do know is if it impacts on somebody in terms of the earnings, what does that mean? So there is things in place round about the signposting into Citizens Advice, and we should be within that community setting, utilising everything that's available to us.
I'm just thinking about this round table outside informal meeting, Chair, and I think it might be an idea to bring some of those third sector organisations along as well. If it's just round the table, informal, what can we do to help each other? You know, there might be a bright idea that just comes in, people say, why the hell did we not think about that in the first place? But just an opportunity.
Right, so I think we'll touch on that, because I'm looking at the recommendations. I think we'll just touch on workshops at that point, so you can bring that to the table then, Archie. Barbara, you were nodding a lot there. Were you wanting to add to anything of that? Just to
No, I think Steph's probably covered that, really. I mean, we do work. Steph went over there the links that we have with you know, Citizens Advice and the fact that they're so important. But so I was just really nodding in agreement, that was all. But I do think, just on the last point there, I think in terms of a workshop, it really would be good to bring like your third sector organisations, including them together. I do think that would be helpful. So that's probably the only part I would add on that.
Excellent, no, spot on. Thanks for that support. Councillor Mail, Dennis, you're next.
Thanks, Steph, and thank you for agreeing to come to Langham Mews and Wetticker Community Council on the 4th to receive a petition from Canonbury Community Council, Langham Community Council areas of 1,000 signatures to do with health and social care in the valley. So I mean, it's big, and I appreciate very much that you're going to come. Archie did mention Murtham. It's not just Murtham, it's this whole issue of this type of housing that was going to be in Moffat was going to be in Langham, the services that were going to go in there as part of that. It's where are they, what happens to them, are they still going to happen in some way, or is all that slipped as well? Because the detriment to people that were looking forward to these type of services is really huge. And if I pick up on Eskdale, on Langham Canonby, I mean, we do not have a service that can even get us to Annan for the normal everyday services such as the physiology, stuff like that. They just can't get there, and people are cancelling appointments or not even going to the doctor because they think there's no point because they're not allowed, and it is becoming a very, very serious issue. One lady I spoke to last week, she'd been over to see somebody at Annan, and she said it was a waste of time because by the time she got home, the work that had been done was all done again. Was finished with the transport and the travel. So there are big issues surrounding the type of care that's needed in some of our rural areas, and I'd say especially like the teams that were going to go into Murtham and Moffat that were going to work in the communities and help out there. So is there any plan for some of that team to be in place and going forward, or is that also put out? The other one on that is we're getting totally confusing messages, and you can't answer this, but from Lorburn in the local paper this week, it's saying that they're sending the cubby contractor out to just take everything off the site in Langham and put it back to as near normal as it was, yet they're going to have it ready by the summer of 2025. I just wonder if you're being given the correct information of what's going on, because we, in the community, we need an answer to exactly what is happening. And finally, would the health board be prepared to work with another contractor in the town that could probably deliver what they look on a different site if this thing with Lorburn keeps on going pear-shaped? Because I'd say we're very, very concerned and very worried that it seems to be one story for one person and another story for another. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, is it okay for me to come in on that?
Absolutely is, Steph, thanks.
Apologies, I jumped the gun there. So I'll take the first thing, we'll talk, obviously we are coming to receive the petition, Councillor Mail, and I'm hoping from that then takes us into discussions round about how we move that agenda forward. I totally appreciate the fact that it feels like the withdrawal of services coming out of COVID. And I'll use this as an example just to put it into context. In terms of our waiting times for physiotherapy, the government set a 4-week target in terms of MSK, which is your musculoskeletal, so that's like your physiotherapy. Nowhere in Scotland is meeting that target because it's absolutely unrealistic coming out of COVID. It was unrealistic before COVID. But by us reconfiguring our clinics, etc., what we have been able to demonstrate this last 6 months is a reduction in the waiting list, whereby we have urgent appointments down to 2.5 weeks, and our general appointments under the 12 weeks. So whilst I appreciate that's not addressing the issue to individual circumstances with people who have difficulty attending appointments elsewhere, for overall, we need to take cognizance of that reduction in the waiting list in terms of everybody waiting for physiotherapy. We do need to look at how we, alongside the right care, right place, because if you remember, our premises, our hospital beds, everything is tied up in right care, right place. And if there is opportunities in the Moffat area or other areas to look at how we use our facilities, then that's what we must do. At this point in time, as you know, there's no decisions made in terms of our premises, so our hands are tied behind our back in relation to that, but that doesn't mean to say we can't be having the conversations with the communities of what would make sense in terms of provision within that area and the facilities. The other part you touched on, and you'll appreciate, as a health and social care partnership, whilst we work closely with housing partners in terms of what we need in terms of housing and the services, or the potential to have services within that area. We have no ownership, we have no influence over Lowburn housing or housing at all. That is another part of the local authority, which is not within the gift of the Health and Social Care Partnership, which makes it difficult for us as a partnership when things like that happen. Loburn have pulled out. However, I would like to think that if there are other contractors interested, then that the partnership would sit round the table and look at that as an option. From our point of view, it's disappointing because there's a lot of work put into that in terms of securing that contract.
Steph, I wonder, just before we get too far into that detail, I know we've got the Head of Strategic Housing here, Jamie Little, who's on the line. Might be worth him maybe saying a couple of words if, spot on, Jamie's there, looks at, but what might be worth him just adding a wee bit, because you're touching on points and I think you're saying that you're absolutely right, it's predominantly the council that's in, controls this in real terms, but obviously along with the Irrigation Joint Board and the Health Social Care Partnership. Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and obviously appreciating Steph is trying to answer the question that's probably better sat with me. But just so in terms of Martin Farm, and I'm sure we'll come on to that discussion under the next item as well. The council shares the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership's frustrations around this site and taking this forward. We are looking to work very closely with Loburn Housing Association so that we can identify ways to bring the development through. We have certainly not been advised by Loburn that there's any reluctance to still look at the extra care provision on the site. And we are keen to try and support the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership to make sure that still happens. There is an opportunity, and alluded to that in the next report, at Selkirk Road to try and bring that development forward in partnership with a private contractor. We're, again, just in terms of the Martham and Selkirk, we really do look at these cases on an individual site basis to look at all the circumstances. Both Martham and the Selkirk Road sites are in Loburn ownership, and that's been secured through funding from the Scottish Government's Affordable Housing Supply Programme. As you can imagine, the Scottish Government are also pressurising Loburn to take action. But without trying to speak for Loburn here and defending them, they are in a position where they are looking to refinance at a particularly challenging time to go into borrowing. They are having to review all of their properties in terms of retrofitting them up to energy efficiency standards. And it really is a perfect storm of problems for them that they're trying to work very hard to resolve. And we will continue to support them. I will go away from this meeting though and seek assurances around the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership provision. All my recent discussions with them have highlighted that that is a priority for the council and for partners. But I will come back with a full response following an update, because I certainly have not been made aware that there is any withdrawal from that approach on these sites.
That was my understanding as well, but I'm sure we'll come this up back to this in the next item as well. Dennis, I think, maybe prepared for that, because we'll look at this site mentioned here as well. No, thanks very much for that, Jamie. I'm not sure who that is. Somebody else coming online? No, sorry, Steps. Oh, sorry, is it Melissa? Sorry, Melissa, I didn't recognise you there. But anyways, I'm getting a bit confused here. But Dennis, are you comfortable with the answers that you've got? I'll just got to make sure. So, just, Steph, if you got anything to, I think you're finishing off, and Jamie's came in there, but it might be something else you want to
add. No, and I think we'll be obviously, as Jamie's highlighted, we're all for trying to address these are wicked issues, and it, it does have an impact. But we will work closely with Jamie and his team in terms of what the partnership can bring and offer to support conversations, and that's a given. That's certainly where our stance is at this moment. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the stress and the problems, but the problem in Eskdale is growing, because to get to Dumfries Hospital now, if you don't have a car, it can cost you £90 for a taxi to go and visit somebody. If you want to come to Annan to visit the clinic there, and you need to get a taxi, it's £30 a trip. Now, we're talking about very elderly people here, not having that type of money. They are struggling. And that's why the services have got to be reviewed, and we've got to see a return to the Thomas Hope Hospital of some of the services that were there, because things are not getting better, and with the delay of the Murtham thing, then it also means that there's going to be more elderly people going into care homes. Now, that can be Carlisle, it can be Sanquhar, it can be Lockerbie, but wherever it is, it's a problem for the rest of the family, and that is growing day by day by day. And as I say, I know about the finance and all that, but this is an issue that we need seriously looked at, and obviously will be touched on further at the meeting of the Community Council.
Thanks for that. I've got a question similar, but I'll leave it till that point in time because I think you'll be able to answer it quite competently yourself, Steph, when it comes to that. But based around about just the Scottish hospitals, the impact that this housing not being delivered as soon as we would like, the impact that'll have on them. But Councillor Marshall, you're next, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think the first thing to say as well, and I think Steph touched on it at the start, is that I think getting a report that an update that's 6 months out of date isn't ideal. So I think the area committee would like to feed back the fact that, you know, we'd want more up-to-date information. And, you know, if we can't change the way the reports are done, etc., it might be ideal that when you know, officers do come out to give an update, maybe if there's anything that's happened within that time period that is not being reported on, more current issues, then they could be highlighted either as a supplementary report or, you know, within your narrative. Because the issue I was wanting to raise was I did get some complaints around the end of July about the state of the Annan Clinic building at Greenlee Road. And I wrote to Julie White, the Chief Operating Officer, just asking what was happening with that and if it could be tidied up. And you know, it was only then that I found out that, you know, they've been using it for storage. I think the last time it was actively used was for the COVID vaccinations. So basically, they're looking now to actually demolish the building because I think the relocation of the services went to Trieste. But it's just an example of, you know, we didn't know what this was happening. I think Julie also confirmed that the team took a conscious decision not to board it up or erect security fencing on the site because they didn't want to identify it as a vacant property. But in actual fact, that's probably what's going to happen now. We're going to have another vacant property in Annan, in the Key site. And I just wondered, is there any update on that? Because obviously it's a concern that it's another, I know the service has been relocated, but there's a building there that looks as though it might be demolished. So as I said, the last time I had any update was back in August. And so probably like an update. If you can't give it today, maybe if you could send that round to local members.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall, and unfortunately that was not a question that I have an answer to. What I would say, and I think that's where we need to consider the workshops. So these templates are set, this is the set template that was outlined in the scheme of delegation. So our hands are tied with the report. I would also say it takes about 3-4 months to get through all the various governance committees to pass each of the reports. So by writing more reports on top of reports doesn't make sense to me in terms of good use of time. My preference would be that we do start in 2024 on a quarterly basis to have workshops with you where we can bring the topic of the day, but we can also bring the local issues that are and questions, answers to them questions in them sessions, because I don't think that the format of this report isn't allowing us to come with all the answers that you're looking for. So I would suggest that we go down the route of the workshops, the STEAM topics, but any questions of the day we can be sent in by yourselves to bring along with us and do it in that setting. I will go back and find out for you, Councillor Marshall, because I don't have a timeline in terms of that demolition. Apologies for that.
I'll always give it a chance to come back in, Sean, just to make sure you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with that. I think maybe the workshops would help, you know, especially if we're getting a 6-month report, because I think, you know, things that are developing or happening that we're made aware of by, you know, nearby residents isn't an ideal situation.
Thanks, Sean. And Councillor Driver Archie, he's putting up saying that review of standing orders committee, I think is what he's saying. I think he's absolutely right in regards to that. It's been a frustration for myself for a number of years. I think we should be empowering area committees so we can dive into that level of up-to-date information, but that low-level information we can see exactly what is happening on the ground and get a chance to influence it. I think actually it's a great idea you've come up with in the first instance. Let's have a workshop, let's talk about health and social care. We can talk about OD. We really can, because and hopefully have a positive impact in regards to that. So I've got a couple of speakers. We've got Councillor George Jemison and Stephen Thompson. George.
Yeah, firstly, I'm going to say thanks to the Chair and to Steph. Often we get these reports and they're highly technical. And I think it's a real advantage that Steph talked through it, because it saved me a lot of questions, because you've answered them in that presentation, which was really helpful. The use of the word significant is often in these reports. I use it too often, but it's a pretty vague word, significant. So on the workshop, I think that's really important, so we can get a better context and things. It's very difficult for you to capture things that are not necessarily statistical or quantitative but qualitative, and that's far more subtle. So the workshop's a good idea. Dennis has covered rural areas really very well, and I totally support him on the particular issues they have in the east of the county. I've also picked up in Annandale South, apart from Annandale and East, we've got a lot of rural communities and even little hamlets. And the feedback I get from a lot of the folk there that there's an increasing elderly population there, and it's a degree of anxiety about the future. They might be healthy now, but what happens in the future? They don't particularly relish going into a care home, for example, and they worry about care packages and all that. And I think we could reduce the anxiety by being proactive and actually giving them some of the information that they may quell some of their anxiety, to explain how the system works and all the rest of it. Because you know yourself, people will worry about things maybe unnecessarily, but if they have more information, that's really, really helpful to them. And it's also their families as well when they get elderly parents in the countryside. How can we look after them, sort of thing? So I think that's a communication thing, and it won't be easy, but it's maybe something that you could identify. But it kind of fits in with Dennis's comments about rural communities have different, some very similar needs, but also different needs that are specific to them. They can also be more isolated in some occasions. So I see you nodding, you'll understand the situation if we can address that. My second issue is that of addiction. Drugs in particular, but also alcohol and education and rehabilitation. And I'm not sure if it's entirely under your role, but I met a young lad when I was walking the dog. I know the family, I know the young lad. He's got a good job and he's got drug addiction problems. And because he's got money, it's difficult to avoid it because all his mates encourage him, etc., etc. Now, he had to go to Glasgow for rehabilitation, and he spent 2 weeks in Glasgow, and he hated it. He said there was drug dealers at the door in Glasgow. He didn't know anybody. Is there anything we can do more locally for local people to rehabilitate them from drugs? I know it's difficult because sometimes these young lads have to get out of the area to escape their peers. But it's something that it's really touched me, because he's a good lad and he's desperate and he doesn't know where to go. He said to me when I met him, "Don't tell anybody I'm home, because they'll just be at my door," sort of style. And I spoke to his dad and I stepped back. It's not my place, I don't have the expertise, but it's how we can help that young lad and many like them. So my third question is on education. Education in schools, the purest kind of education. How can we help give schools agency? Because often it's a bit of a Cinderella subject, health and well-being, so I think it's in the curriculum, but are we putting the right people in front of these children to help them to stay healthy mentally and physically? And again, you know, these are three very, very long questions, but it's just to make you aware, and I'm sure you are aware of these issues. And again, I put it back to us councillors, what can we do to help you do your job, where you've got the expertise and we've got the political policy making policies? So how can we help you with these areas?
We'll direct that through you, Steph, and if you want to bring Barbara in at any time, please do.
Thank you. I'll maybe make a start. Maybe Barbara can talk a wee bit more about the mental health and the complex pathways. So first of all, unfortunately, my role and remit and Barbara's role and remit within the community directorate it doesn't extend into the mental health directorate. So I'm not able to answer anything specific around about the addiction and rehab, etc., because that's out with my role and remit, and it's not within the delegated scheme. Mental health services. Part social work mental health services is, but our mental health directorate is not. So there's what the first issue, isn't it, around about the complexities of health and social care. Some of it's in, some of it's not delegated. And it's the same with education. So women's and children's directorate sits separately as well. It's not in the delegated scheme, so it's out with my role and remit as well as and Barbara's as well. So I can't answer them specifics, but Barbara may want to touch on the addiction part in terms of the social work services. With regard to care at home, which I can't answer, so there's a bonus I can answer something. First of all, I just want to acknowledge you using the kind of lived experiences and the stories. I think that's really powerful in terms of putting into context and helping aid that kind of question. So I think that's I really do like that, using that lived experience, and I think that's as a partnership we need to use more of the stories and the lived experience to be able to actually help change the narrative around about health and social care. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. The care at home provision and the information and education, I think we fall short. I think people don't understand necessarily the options open to them at the outset. So for instance, if you move up to Dumfries and Galloway, you know, people do move into the darkest and deepest back and beyond up a country track. The likelihood of you getting a package of care or a managed service up that country track is very, very slim. But we don't outline that to people when they move to the area. It's only when they hit crisis and then we're stuck. The provision in Annandale and Eskdale, I will say, is we only have 4 main providers. And it's getting more and more difficult to sustain that care at home market. We have recently worked with a local provider to encourage them to change their contracts to full-time contracts, which means you get a shift as opposed to you work from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. There's a break because there's nobody, and then you're back on at lunchtime, and then you're back on at tea time. So they've tested that, and that's been successful. And some of the other areas are doing international recruitment. But the care at home and what that involves, that's where Barbara and her team and our community link workers, the home teams, we should be using the opportunity when we're speaking to people to help them understand about what does that actually mean. And again, I think we're very quick to respond and react, and we're good at that. We're very good at the reactive piece. We react to somebody that's in a crisis situation, and 9 times out of 10 we do resolve that for them. But I do think there's some work we need to do that's actually round about that education, because people are, you're right, people are scared. Barbara talks about the SDS option 1, where we give you the budget, but people don't want to manage the budget because that means managing staff, it means being an employer. Now that's scary. It's scary for me, and I'm working in health and social care, so it's doubly scary for people and their families. So we need to get smarter in how we do that, and that's where Barbara's talked about the brokerage system, where we're an independent person comes in and actually works with the families to help them understand. We are in a tricky position with managed services because we need to look at how we commission services in the future, and that right care, right place. What do we need in terms of care home beds? How do we commission them? We've got a traditional route of commissioning. We've got a national framework which we have to follow, which is set in stone by Scottish Government. And you know, our hands are tied because negotiations round about pay rates are all done nationally through the government, and I don't need to tell you about the finances in terms of what we're experiencing in D&G. So there's a whole host of things. I think, sorry, I'm going on. There is a whole host of things. But for Annandale and Eskdale, I think we need to concentrate on how we can sustain the market and actually improve that market, and encourage providers to come to the area, and also work on the education. Barbara, you may want to say a bit about the mental health stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I've forgotten, first of all, who asked the question. I think it was Councillor Marshall, wasn't it?
Jamieson.
Was it Councillor Marshall?
Jamieson, George
See, I've lost.
My questions are shorter than James, George's.
No, that's, I think it was because of the length of it, but that's what, no, what you said there resonated with me. Do you know about the young lad that you met while walking the dog? Because I guess in the not too dark and distant past, I wasn't doing this job. I was a social worker, and I've met several people like that. And when I heard you saying that, I thought you remember names, do you know, of people that I've come across who were in exactly the same sort of predicament, nice, likeable, young guys, young girls, but just in a desperate situation in terms of their drug addiction, and where we've had to make really, really difficult decisions, both in terms of is this the right thing and about funding to send people to rehab places which are often short-lived, they're always out of region, and then how do you then kind of come back from that when you're reintroduced to the local community? So in answer to your question, is there anything that you as a committee can do? I don't know how you go about it, but it is to support that argument, because like Steph says, some of this sits within the Mental Health Directorate, but we do have, I'm going to acknowledge, we do have a lack of resource around when it comes locally. We've got nothing when it comes to that rehab situation. So that is an argument that we all really need to support, and anything that yourselves can do. I don't quite know what that is. That might need further discussion, but there is that complete gap in the market. There are pathways for people within social work itself, for people in the situation you described. They're more often than not known to criminal justice or through the mental health pathways, or because they need additional support. But I guess there's a bit of joining up that's not right round about the services, but there also is absolutely the lack of resource, both in that local rehab and the difficulties that we have in supporting people who get into that situation with appropriate housing. That's another one. So your support would be much appreciated. But like I say, we might need further discussions about how, I'm just not quite clear how that might look, how that might shape up. And I don't know if that's helpful, but that's probably the bit that I'd add in round about that.
Yeah, I really appreciate both of your candid reaction, because I really appreciate that honesty, and it is up to us to try and react to that. Chair, the one thing I would say, and it happens time and again, is lack of joined up thinking. We're for whatever reason, we're living in silos too often, and the hard bit is to join the silos up, because we all tick our own boxes. But if we actually looked at ticking other people's boxes as well as our own, it's the saying that all ships are lifted in a rising tide. So I think, Chair, that's something we could address: mental health, drugs, rehabilitation, alcohol abuse, all the rest of it. It seems to be spread over several services, and it's how we can look at how can we join these up without adding to you guys' workload, so that somebody takes agency and leads on it, but feeds into everybody else. And it's too easy sometimes to say, I've done my bit, and everybody steps back, and then there's nobody there leading on that and taking the agency of it. So the responsibility is shared, but almost diluted. So I think that's something we can do as politicians, is to encourage our services to work together and argue for resources. My big thing, Ian, in the budget panel is, if we cut short term, we pay long term. So we've got to invest in some short term investments, so spend to save, that sort of thing. But I really appreciate your feedback. It's been really excellent.
I do think, Steph, we've known each other for a number of years now. Through the Integration Joint Board. Ultimately, it's the Health Social Partnership that's presented to us today, but this feedback goes back to the Health Social Partnership as well as the Integration Joint Board. And I think all the services that we're talking about here do deal directly or present to the Integration Joint Board. So that's possibly a mechanism that we might visit. When we look at recommendation 2.2, we look to refer back up, and I think that could be a route in which we influence. But I'll just take your guide on that, Steph, if that's okay.
No, I think if you think this was all set up in 2016, and gosh, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? There's been a lot happened, and I think it was based on the locality plans at the time from 2016 to 2019, and then beyond that, COVID hit, didn't it? And then that was that. But I think it is probably the time to start the discussions a bit moving forward, and how how we join up the kind of reporting mechanisms that make it easier for area committee, or what is the role for area committee, and what is the information they need, and how we do that. I'd say it is difficult, and the gentleman previously did mention about that working partnership right across health and social care, whether it's mental health, but or women's and children's. But you're right, we're all responsible for our own bit, and we need to look at it as a whole system in health and social care, but also our other partners, police, education, fire, etc. All of this has to come into play. But it's maybe worth something that I think probably what you'll find the other area committees might raise the same kind of, where do we go for here? What is the right mechanism? I'll certainly feed it back to Julie White as Chief Officer to raise. It's maybe a discussion with the IGB and what's needed. But now's the time's ripe for that, I think, moving into 2024. So if you're able to do it through your mechanism, and if there's a route through IGB to raise the questions, and I'll do it at my end as well, and we'll see where we'll get to.
Thanks, Steph. I know it's more recent, in the more recent time, but drug and alcohol do report now to Integration Joint Board, aware of that, and that's where the possible route I was thinking. So there is a number of mechanisms that can possibly come up at the workshop as well, but we'll look at that at 2.2, the recommendations. Councillor Thompson, Stephen, you're next.
Thanks. Chair, can you hear me okay?
Right, loud and clear.
Great stuff, thank you. Yes, so it's actually on dental services, which I believe are within the integration scheme from NHS, so community and general dental services. One of the things, obviously, that's changed recently, which we don't really have a specific measurement in the reporting, but I think it's obviously relevant for a number of reasons. Just in terms of the new dentistry deal, I suppose, from 1st of November. And there is something about, we've no real sight, although we are aware of issues in the dental recruitment sector for NHS dentists, what that picture looks like in Annandale and Eskdale in terms of NHS dental service provision. So the new entitlement is that every NHS patient would have a full assessment to determine what their, I suppose, risk level would be in terms of how often they might need to have an appointment, whether it's 6 months or 2 years or whatever that might be. So that's part of the public health, oral health sort of thrust. And I know there's a few other programmes to do with, like Child Smile and I don't know if it was Brush Up or whatever, or just targeting vulnerable groups for preventative dental care. But the entitlement is basically for that assessment, and then that would determine, what sort of level of or frequency of appointments you might need. I'm concerned that we're maybe not even going to be able to deliver that entitlement, but I'd be keen to know what the NHS board is able to do locally to make sure we're able to provide that, and if not, where the areas of challenge are, because I think some practices will be okay, others might not be taking on patients or are only doing emergency treatment, but the NHS dental services can recruit its own NHS dentists specifically. So I'd like to understand a bit more about the picture since the 1st of November, and I know it's out with the dates of the report, and that we don't have key performance indicators for that, but how do we access that information, given that it is part of the IJB, and then ultimately we'd see that through health and social care delivery, if you like. So I don't know if it's an awkward one, but if you could help with that one in any way, be very much in your gratitude, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on, Steph, go on.
Do you want to come in there before I come in?
No, I always got to say that this exact subject matter was discussed last week at the Future Innovation Transformation, which is a committee of the Integration Joint Board. So there's pressures in regards to the dental and the general practitioners. So it's a piece of work we're looking to take forward for future investment and actual potentially transformation. So but we're at agenda setting point. We're right at the very beginning of that journey, so to speak. But Steph, you can maybe touch on what your thoughts are in regards to it. But I know it is on the agenda for the Integration Joint Board.
Yeah, and it comes back to what I've kind of theme of the day is really that it's primary care. services, so primary care services sits in its own directorate as well, so I don't have the information available, unfortunately. What I would kind of respectfully suggest is maybe the first workshop maybe looks at your primary care services, your GP provision and your dental provision, because that might be a good starting place for us in the new year, which might address some of the questions and help aid some understanding. I don't have any information on dental services, I'm sorry.
No, okay, it was a bit of a punt, but thanks for that, and I do appreciate that is a piece of work that's been looked at, and I think the workshop would certainly be helpful to sort of raise that. I think the concern would be even just getting that data of, how many dental services are in Annandale and Eskdale, how many are providing that base level of entitlement, how many are short of a dentist, do you know what I mean, that kind of thing. So because it is a bit patchy, it just depends where you are in the region, seemingly, if you happen to be registered with a dentist who does, because there are ones that do, but there's some that don't. So, and we've seen some partnership news bulletins coming out saying, Stranraer's losing this practice and, that type of thing. So it does concern people, but I appreciate we can't answer that today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I'm just a wee note there for Tracy saying that the joint scheme for Dumfries and Galloway Council NHS, the Health Board and the IGBs come to full council in December, Stephen, so it might be a point to pick up there, so we can make our points relevant there. But I think a lot of this has got to be washed up, I would say, in our workshops. Steph, have you got an idea? Is that like January, February time, are you thinking? Just before we get to the next stage?
Yeah, I think what I would maybe suggest is, so I was thinking a quarterly basis, and maybe with the leads of each of the area committees agreeing what the first for the year is the general topics, whether that's, as I say, GP provision, dental provision, primary care services, delayed discharges, absolutely, and people that are delayed springs to mind as well. And then there's the right care, right place things. I would suggest that I think, given where we are, given the system pressures and where we are, I don't think December's doable, fair point of view, and that's just purely on a capacity point of view to be able to kind of work that up. But I think January, and if you nominate the leads, I can get in touch with them and arrange directly to kind of organise this. What I don't want to do is, like, I suppose what I want to do is have that kind of format across all the area committees, so the topics, so we're coming out with the same topic, if you see what I mean, as the initial topic. But I appreciate the nuances and round about the individual circumstances for the localities. We will retain that within the workshop specific to Annandale and Eskdale or Stewartshire, whatever. That's absolutely fine. But I was thinking, yeah, January, if that's okay.
I think that's probably January, February time. So at least I'll ask Stuart as your lead, Stuart Hamilton, he's sitting next to me, and I will have that discussion just as we go through the recommendations. I did have some questions. I still have it in real terms, but I'll ask him. But I'm not really looking for an answer because I'll probably get them in the workshops. And it was regards to the delay in the house building, both at the Murtham and Langham and the Selkirk Road project in Moffat. Will that have an impact on bed block and so on and so forth? Actually, services being delayed in that area, those areas, I should say. But I will leave that to the workshop, and anything else outside one other, but I'll just leave that as well, because we've had a good old discussion in regards to this today. And I think more than anything, we've established some of the local facts, but a way forward in which we can interact in a better way, more comfortable, probably in a private session, so we can ask more open, and it always is a better format in which to get to the very grassroots of and get the answers as local members we do want. So 2.1 is to note the overview outlined in the appendix, which we've all read, and we've had a presentation in regards to that, and we've noted that. It's the 2.2 bit we'll have a bit of discussion on. Recommend any matters from the appendix back to the for consideration to the Integration Joint Board where considered appropriate. Now, I think that's where we need to include our workshops. I think you spoke about the Review Standing Orders Committee, and that's maybe as well, Archie, in regards to beefing up the remit and what an actual area committee can do. That might be a way, but it's Integration Joint Board in particular. So workshops is definitely, I think we need to be included there somewhere at some point in regards to, we've got to take that, and if that's January or February, whenever it is, but Laisby Stewart in regards to that for Annandale and Eskdale. I think you've picked up in the themes, from primary care to GPs to dental and so on and so forth. You've got at least 3 or 4 strong themes there, and it's a single workshop, and there'll be other things coming for the side. George, you picked up on alcohol and drug in particular, and how we relate that back, I think, to Integration Joint Board. I know my own experience tells me that drug and alcohol now do present that the performance managed at a local level by the Integration Joint Board, so that might be a route, but it might be better left for the workshop pick up and there they have that direct route through. But I don't know if you've got any comments in regards to that.
Yeah, it's something that the workshop might help tease out, if you like, but I think it's very important that we're almost accepting that drugs it just happens, and I think locally we need to look at all the services to see how each of the services can play a part. So it's a wider remit, including schools, social services, NHS and the police. I've already spoken to the police, so it's how we coordinate that better. So that would be really helpful.
No, absolutely, George. Right, so I think if we can leave it at that, Stuart, or Tracy, Stuart in particular at this moment in time, have you got anything else that you think we've missed in regards to 2.2 and any other members? But I'll see if Stuart can round that up along with Tracy. Sorry, Tracy's got a load of notes here, like whoever wants to take this forward.
Thanks, Chair. My suggestion would be to members, because the recommendation is to recommend any matters back, and it's the IGB, and we can't obviously instruct the IGB to do anything, it's maybe that we word it around welcome the offer of workshops to be held, and note that the themes for those will be taken forward through joint working with the link officers and chairs of each area committee starting from January 2024. I wonder if that would be acceptable.
That sounds bang on. Steph, what are you thinking?
No, that sounds perfect, thank you.
We'll capture that other information. No, excellent. Listen, thanks very much. You were late, but you did an excellent job. You couldn't have done any better. I don't think that's led to a lot of really good debate, informed us all, and that's established a new working relationship as we go forward, which is phenomenal. Brilliant, excellent. Right, thanks very much, members. We'll see you at the next meeting. Cheers, cheers, Steph. Cheers, Barbara. Thanks, members, for your patience in regards to that and your input. Very much appreciated. Our next performance report is for Economy and Resources Director. It's end of year assessment. Members will note detail associated with the Annan Harbour Regeneration Project at 4.6.1, which has now been superseded by the fantastic announcement of, it's got 11.6 million here. Some people are telling me it's 11.9 million away from here, so we've got a degree, but it's just short of 12 million. 12 million, I think is what I'll say, from the Levelling Up Fund, which came in on Monday of this week. I know the amount of work that has been put in over many years from both Annan Harbour Action Group and officers of the Council to get to this point. I would like to just place on record our congratulations on this achievement and our appreciation for their commitment. I would also welcome a full report and presentation on the major local project to our next meeting to allow members to gain a full understanding of the impact of this project and significant investment for Annandale and Eskdale. Right, a couple of names here I think I've just got to mention in particular, and that's Melissa McGarry, Shelley Bell and Jamie Nicholson, because I know how much an incredible amount of work you've put into this, the Annan Harbour project in particular, and hopefully that will continue into the future. I did talk about that briefly yesterday at Economy Resources. I know you weren't there, Melissa, but excellent. So Simon Fieldhouse as well, Jamie Little, are on Teams to answer any members' questions in regards to this particular report today. So we have a number of people here. So I can see Jamie, Simon, Melissa and Shelley. Excellent. Does MD want to add, what I've given the chance, which isn't maybe normal practice, used to be a number of years ago, does MD want to speak to this report and do a short 5 to 10 minute presentation, or we can just go direct to questions, because we see we've got a number of, haven't got the report authored as such, but we've got a number of different people here. So what sits, Jamie, I'm looking at you because you're at the top left hand side of the screen. I'll ask you first, give you the opportunity to present to the area committee, or we can just go straight to answers, but I'll wait and see what you say first.
Thanks, Ian. I'm sure I could talk for 5 to 10 minutes unprepared, but I'll maybe see if anybody else wants to take on that mantle at the moment.
No bother, because you'll get a lot of questions anyways, Jamie. Councillor Mills is coming back into the room as well in regards to housing. Simon, I'll give you second shot, then I'll leave it at that if you can.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think happy just to go to questions at this moment in time.
It is an awkward position to be put into when you're not the report author, but you've got the detailed knowledge in particular subject matters. Right, members, have we got a list of who's wanting to speak? Councillor Driver, well done. Archie, you're first.
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's just coming to 4.6.9 of the report on page 32, which is a Magnox DG12 grant scheme. Excellent output from that, especially when you look at the number of the grants awarded, the number of jobs created and the anticipated ones of that as well. And of course the total project value has increased. So I'd just like to say well done to those that were involved in that particular thing. The local place plans were discussed yesterday at the Economy and Resources Committee, and I'm sure those that were there will understand some of the outputs of that. The Borderlands Inclusive Growth Natural Capital Programme is one that I would like some more information on, if whoever's dealing with that one. And finally, Jamie, I'm not letting you off with anything on housing or out like that. The Scottish Government have said that they're discussing a housing emergency today, I think it was, in the Scottish Parliament. The situation in Dumfries and Galloway is that we have a waiting list for social housing. I don't know what the size of that is. Are you aware of that, and where are we at?
Okay, over to Hefferfield's. Excellent. But I think just to add weight to Archie, it's his question, but it is social, it is affordable, it is market housing as well, with the real pressure that came out of just if you could maybe touch on that as well, saves me asking it later.
Yeah, happy to pick up, Chair, just in terms of the housing queries first of all. So in terms of the waiting list demand, and obviously the Chair of the Strategic Housing Forum is aware of the work we've been doing around the housing need and demand assessment, which was also highlighted to members at yesterday's Economy and Resources Committee. We do have the waiting list information from both the Common Housing Register and Lawburn Housing Association's own waiting list information as well. So the figures that we're aware of are around 2,500 to 3,000 people on waiting lists for social housing in Dumfries and Galloway at this time. It's important just to clarify that information, to say though that there's a range of different needs within that waiting list demand. Some people who are prioritised through the different allocations policies that are in place, and some people who are really would not be at such a priority but still have a desire and a wish to move into the high quality accommodation that comes forward. In terms of a housing emergency, excuse me, both Edinburgh City Council and Argyll and Bute Council have recently declared housing emergencies for their own areas. It is predominantly based on the pressures that are in their homelessness systems, but also includes challenges around delivery of the affordable housing supply programme. The issues that we discussed on the previous item in relation to Lawburn aren't standalone. There are many housing associations across Scotland who are facing similar challenges and similar problems in terms of development of new homes. There is a discussion happening nationally, and through the Council's role on the Association of Local Authority Chief Housing Officers and Solace, we are inputting into that discussion and making recommendations to the Scottish Government. That's obviously something we'll be looking to report back to members more fully as outcomes are provided or objectives are provided by the Scottish Government. And happy to come back to you on that as we get more information.
Thanks, Jamie. There was another couple of points. So Borderlands, I think it was 4.6.11. Oh no, it wasn't. Sorry, 4.6.6. Yeah.
Chair, I'll pick up the Gretna Borderlands Place programme. So there's been quite a lot of activity since the period of the report. We now have consultants in place and they have started work to develop the local place plan, and we anticipate that community engagement sessions will be held early in the new year. There will be a survey going out to residents very shortly, asking them what their views are and what they would like in their local place plan. So work has actually started in earnest on Gretna's local place plan for the Borderlands programme.
Archie, if you just want to come in.
I understand this happening in the place plan. Was talking about the natural capital programme was supposed to be things in place by March of this year or April this year. I'm just wondering what's happening with the programme that will deliver a series of pilot interventions. Has there been any movement on that? I understand where we are with the place programme. This was the natural capital programme in 4.6.11.
Page 33.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just come in on that one, just to sort of reassure Councillor Driver that there is movement. Unfortunately, we're just waiting for Scottish Government to sign off on the programme. There is obviously, as you've kind of identified, the 3 pilot programme areas which were taken forward. So obviously farm support, woodlands, and also the Solway Coast and Marine project that's moving forward. We are just in the final process of getting that business case hopefully signed off by the Scottish Government to allow us to move forward.
Okay. Did you mention 4.6.8 as well or not? That was just local place plans, but I think Shelley took that as the Borderland place plans. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the Borderland stuff.
All I said was discussed that yesterday.
Right, okay.
Economy and resources.
Right, so.
Some action came out of that.
Yep. So.
Sorry, just to make sure everybody was. All I said about the place plans is we discussed it yesterday at Economy and Resources Committee, and there were some actions and things that came out of that. The issues that are raised have been discussed. But just to say well done to the Magnox and DG12 one.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for that. Capture that. Have we got anybody else? Dennis, sorry, Dennis, Councillor Mail.
Sorry for having to slip out there, Chair. Yep. 4.6.8, the very last paragraph, or the last sentence, there has been an expression of interest submitted from Langham. The place plan team are working with the community development plans. I've argued for a long time that this whole issue of place plans and how it's been handled gives us a them and us. There are certain communities that are getting serious help for this. There's other communities that want to do it are getting nothing. It's how we get around this issue. There's funding and that being placed in certain communities and other communities that are having to try and do it themselves and whatever. So we're going to create a 2-tier system in Dumfries and Galloway very quickly on things like place plans and taking things forward. How do we stop it?
So yesterday at Economy and Resources, what we did was we put forward a proposal that we do put extra resource into that, and it's led by the council in particular, but it's cross-agency as well. NHS will be involved in that and other stakeholders. But that'll come through the budget process in February, the allocation of funds, just to avoid exactly what you're saying, to make sure we can empower local communities and that they get a chance. If they want a local place plan in place that's achievable, then they get the chance. And it's anything, the discussion going back to, I think what Archie was talking about, anything from it could be a play park right through to new development, new housing, whatever it may be, commercial buildings, it could be a whole raft of things. But I don't know if anybody is actually here that could maybe talk to that. That's another thing. But we did discuss that in great detail yesterday. It was a complete agenda item, and that was pretty much the crux of it.
Shelley has been involved in the community, so she knows about it. But I mean, also there is a full community plan drawn up that was insisted on by Scottish Government through SOCI, making Langham one of 6 communities in the whole south of Scotland that needed help, and now we're about 13th or 14th for some reason in the list. Nobody knows why.
I don't. Shelley, is that something you can talk to or not? Or Melissa? One of the two. I see 2 people coming forward there.
I can talk a little bit about the local place plans and the support that is currently available. And you're correct, Chair, that there was a report asking for further resources, because we have identified that there are some communities that are slightly disadvantaged or disadvantaged because they don't have the capability to do that. And obviously we would like to be able to help everyone, but we just don't have the resources to do that. And the way that the local place plans have been put in regulations is about its community, and it's the community that's writing it. So I think what went to Economy and Resources yesterday is kind of like the plan to be able to put more resources in place to support more communities.
Chair, if I could just add to that. So the action plan that was developed a couple of years ago, one of the projects that's emerged from that is the Langham Primary School project. We've started down the route of working with that group to support that going forward, with the potential of that ending up in our Economic Development Capital Programme. So we've already provided funding through community-led economic regeneration framework to do initial feasibility work. there are further opportunities to get further support through that framework to take that project forward. We've had some initial discussions about a potential funding strategy for that project. We see that as having a strong fit, for example, with Regeneration Capital Grant Fund, which members might be aware we've had significant success with that as a funding route over the years. So we are seeking opportunities and working with the local community. Obviously, we're mindful that a further place plan is going to emerge that may identify additional priorities in the years going forward. But rather than waiting on that, as I say, we are working with this initial project first to try and get that into our programme. Thanks.
Yeah, Chair, obviously I chaired that, so it wasn't what I was talking about, it was actually the place plan, because what is happening, Langham, Hughes and Western Community Council and Canemy Community Council are joining together to produce a place plan. And I know Shelley's been working hard on it, but it's the fact that there is not that finance in place really to help these things develop where other communities are getting that opportunity. But I'm pleased to hear it's going to be discussed, so I hope that that will lead to something happening there.
It absolutely was. It's a recognition. It came up at the September committee in real terms, and there was a real willing to get behind it. That's where the report yesterday came from. But ultimately, we could have put it to the Finance Procurement Transformation to apply resource straight away. But the thinking behind it was, by the time it got, it would be the end of January, beginning of February. Before it got there, we'd agree the budget at the end of February. What was the point? We could actually allocate the right level of resource to it that could. And I got a bit of a wake up yesterday when we got the economic development team consists of 5 people. Getting me across the whole Dumfries and Galloway. Well, January, sorry, the full complement will be in January. That was a bit of a wake up. So we got a greater understanding in regards to the level of stress and workload that people are under. But again, the council, as it goes on over the next few years, I suppose it'll prioritise where it really wants to see its money spent, and it'll have to apply the resources at the appropriate level. And you'll be included in that, Dennis, obviously through the budget process. I have got George Jimison. Councillor Jimison, George.
Yes, and I'll try not to be too confusing this time. I'm picking up on what Dennis mentioned, and it's a common theme. We talked about it. We had a meeting with one of the ministers recently on wind farm funding. My point is this, that people who are most in need of support tend to get left out when grant funding's about. It was the same when I worked for the Scottish Agricultural College. People who could afford to get professional advice got the grants. But the people in the greatest need don't have the agency or the ability sometimes, or sometimes even the motivation because of the situation they're in. And regions or towns and villages that are fortunate enough to sort of have professional people. I'm trying not to be too subjective here. But what I think Dennis is referring to quite rightly is how do we help the people that can't help themselves to a great extent? They can't make their case. And wind farm is a good example where small communities will maybe put in projects and get it, but the people who are suffering most are the people that can't afford to pay the energy bills. So it's a broad question. How do we, the council and the officials like Shelley, help people that may have difficulty forming groups themselves? And it's a really tricky one, but to get the money to where it can do most advantaged, it's not happening often enough. So how we take that forward, I don't know, but I think it's worthy for the council to think on their budget setting when these such a place plans to put extra resources in to help the people find the wherewithal to get their opinions and to support them in doing the administration. I think that's crucial to help people, as I say, that don't have the ability to help themselves.
So from a local place plan point of view, where would that fit? What George's saying there, how and where would that fit in regards to helping local communities build up their local place plan?
Thanks, Chair. I'll take this one. So at the moment, there's a team, a task team that go out and support that's made up of economic development, the relevant ward officer for that area and a planning officer, and it's identified, you know, who's best to support them, what kind of support that they actually need from that initial meeting. But unfortunately, we can't write the local place plans for them. That is up to the community to do, and I think that's where some communities are struggling that don't have like Langham, who have got project officers that can do that. Some communities don't have that. and we can't do that for them unless we have more resources to help them.
Oh, excellent. Thanks so much, George. That's maybe something we can pick up later, or?
Yeah, Shelley's hit the nail on the head there. And again, from a previous experience, you know, professionals that would write something for them that represented the views of the community would be extremely helpful. Form filling administration is a real barrier to some folk, and if we can give them help to do that, then I think everybody will benefit.
Completely agree with that. Definitely, it's a profession, and even I know I'm involved with a couple of organisations where you even struggle to get that when you're paying for it handsomely. I would say you still struggle to get that level of skill set which you can procure. I don't think we have any other. Have we got any other? Stuart picked up? No. So I just one from myself, just to pick on yourself, Jamie. 4.6.16. Just if you could give us a quick summary in regards to the housing. So that talks about local, talks about the SHIP, local housing strategy, street housing. And you've got a number of projects here going from Stansfield Farm and Eastriggs to Longmeadow Annan, Hallcross Stadium at Gretna. It tells you at Murtham and Selkirk Road, so that's Langham and Moffat. It gives us a description of what's happening where they are. I wonder if you could just give us a quick presentation in regards to that, where they are, and maybe outline to, as sensitively as you can where I think the Langham and the Moffat sits with Lowerburn, because that is a sensitive situation. It's difficult, but I think we need to understand, right, okay, the brakes are on for the time, but my understanding, going back to comments that Dennis made earlier, was hopefully they'll be completed, certainly the Murtham site at Langham by December 25, and that's the case. I thought it was a 69-month project from where it is at the moment. So long as they hit the ground by the beginning of 2025, that should be a go to be complete by then, speaking just from experience. But Jamie, I'll pass that over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. What I'll do is just run through those projects. I'll probably give you the detail that you're looking for, additional detail over and above what's in the report. I'll maybe just start off with a summary of the Affordable Housing Supply Programme for the region, where we're in a fairly strong position in terms of delivery. We're expecting that we will utilise the full resource planning assumption that's available during 23-24, which I think is a testament to a lot of the work that members have supported in terms of strategic housing. The reality is that a lot of those projects are now being taken forward by Wheatley Homes South. They have got significant buying power as part of the Wheatley Group. We also recognise that they were funded and found their borrowing at a good time. Chair will be aware of the press release that's due to go out from Wheatley just in relation to plans to build another 800 homes right throughout the region. They've got projects. Johnston Bridge is one that falls in this area that's going through the planning process that they're hoping to bring forward at the moment as well. And that's also as part of our strategic agreement as a council with Wheatley Homes South to try and progress some of those objectives. Moving on to specific projects that are within Annandale and Eskdale. So Stanfield Farm, there's been a lot of work put in to get to this development to a stage where it's almost ready to go. There has been significant constraints in terms of Scottish Water and the infrastructure there, but working really closely between all the different organisations, we have been able to come up with a solution. Final legal agreements are hopefully just about to be signed between Cunningham solicitors and neighbouring landowners, just to ensure that other elements of the infrastructure provision can be put in place. That will be obviously a very strong development as that one comes forward, given that number of units really will help us to utilise the resource planning assumption and allow Cunningham to become further more established within the region. Longmeadow and Annan, a project recently completed by Lowerburn Housing Association. Members will be aware that 22 of there was 24 new build units, 3 units provided in the derelict building. 22 of those units were already occupied some time ago, and 2 of the new units and the 3 units within the building have recently been occupied as well. If anybody would like, I am happy to share a very interesting piece of drone footage showing a before and after for that site, which really does just show the impact it's had on that derelict building and that part of the town. Again, very high quality properties, have some amenity bungalows and wheelchair accessible homes, as well as family properties. So a good mix there. Halcrow Stadium, Gretna Phase 3 and 4, it's referred to in the local development plan as land north of Victory Avenue. This is part of the site that is owned by Cunningham House Association. There are 2 other landowners. Work was underway to try and pull together a master plan for the whole site between the landowners, but has been particularly challenging. So the approach that's now been taken with support from colleagues in development management has been for Cunningham to submit a standalone planning application for the piece of land they own. It will still allow for the required infrastructure to be put in place to bring that development forward. And again, will allow Cunningham to get that greater foothold in Dumfries and Galloway. I will just mention as well, while we're on the subject of Gretna, that Scottish Water are progressing well with the development of the service reservoir, which will provide water to as much capacity as within the local development plan as it stands. So currently around 700 housing units are being enabled through that piece of work. Merton Farm, I didn't mean to leave the more challenging ones to last, but that's the way they've come up in this list. So Merton Farm, as mentioned in the previous report, particularly disappointing that this one hasn't been able to progress. Over a number of years, there's been significant work put in by the council to try and get this one to a point of moving forward, including a lot of engagement with the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership. We are particularly disappointed that Lawburn have not been able to take this one forward, but also do recognise that there are a myriad of different reasons for that happening. Also, just want to acknowledge Lawburn have been a very strong strategic partner for the council previously. Members in this committee will particularly be aware of the developments at Station Yard in Annan, which provided 9 homes for people with additional learning needs. We will continue to work really closely with Lawburn to try and make sure that both Merton Farm and Selkirk Road can come forward. On Selkirk Road, have had discussions with Lawburn about looking at a different delivery model, which would allow this project to come forward relatively soon. We don't have specific timescales, but the planning application has been submitted for their section of that development, which is part of a wider private development on that site. There is some amendments that require to be made, but we are engaging very closely with development management colleagues around Selkirk Road, and there is plans within that development to provide 10 units of accommodation for older people within a block that has been supported by the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership. Just a slight aside to the rest of the Affordable Housing Supply Programme, again, that the 5th of September 2023 Economy and Resources Committee agreed the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, which really did set out that commitment to continue to work with the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership around some of those wider challenges. And that is something that is effectively, we are opening the door to the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership to come forward to us with ideas for the whole region, and we are keen to continue to work with them. It's likely that we'll be looking to tap into the development expertise of Wheatley Home South as well to try and take forward a number of those projects across the region. Hopefully that's covered everything members are looking for, but more than happy to take any additional questions.
Excellent, absolutely bang on that, Stephen. Councillor Marshall's got a question to come in. Sean?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got quite a few questions. I think the first one is I actually get where Dennis is coming from, albeit that probably Langham is in a better place than a lot of other communities because they have the Langham Alliance and project officers on the ground. But I think what he's referring to is the kind of like 2-tier system with regards to the 5 communities that are luckily included in the Borderland Place programme, which includes Gretna. And you heard Melissa say that they're appointing consultants, so they have that luxury because they have additional funding for that. Whereas other communities, and we raised this at ENR last week, we're a little bit worried that There's only 13 that have actually said across the whole of Dumfries and Galloway, and there's only one apart from Gretna in Annandale and Eskdale that put their hands up. So it is an issue. It was good news. It's not just 5 people within economic development. I think it's within the economic project development team, and they're currently at 2 at the moment, but that's going up to 5 by March 2024. So I welcome that. But I do think there's a challenge there, and I think all councillors know it's a challenge when you go into communities, depending on what capacity they have to develop a place plan. And the worry is what happens to the ones that are left behind that don't have a place plan. Also, with regards, just to mention Magnox and the Annan DG12 scheme, that was an excellent scheme, a lot of work done by Shelley. When I worked at Magnox, I sat on the board, so when it said DG12, it did mean DG12, so we had new businesses or businesses that expanded in Hulfu, in Brykirk and Eastriggs, as well as a number of businesses in Annan. So that was very successful. One thing that hasn't been mentioned as well is with regards to, I thought it would have been on the report, and I know it has been delayed because of lack of manpower resources, but it was originally the 50,000 that was given towards the Victoria Hall's feasibility study, and that now has been changed to look at the derelict buildings and derelict land within Annan, and in which I welcome that because it gives us a look at not only Victoria Halls, which isn't derelict, but obviously there's plans to actually, there's projects within the master plan in Annan to develop that. But we also have the situation that we have the Albert Hall, we have the Central Hotel. You just heard earlier today that potentially we have the site that where the Annan Clinic stood on, and we also have the Erskine Church. So hopefully when that work does start, and maybe we can have a report or we can have an update out with the meeting, then it might start to tackle some of these derelict buildings. It's probably one of the main priorities for the people in Annan. Jamie, just because you're on as well, I noticed when I went by, the Erskine Church is up for sale again. So I'm just wondering, because it's had a SHIP, it's had a commitment from SHIP for funding, what happens to that if it's sold on? Does that kind of guarantee go with the sale of the land, or do they have to reapply the new owners? Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'll let you start off, Jamie, and whoever else wants to come in after that with the points that have been raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll just, in terms of the Erskine Church, recently met with the building craftsmen who are currently the firm that are looking to take forward the Erskine Church development through the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, who had only just on that day been made aware it was going up for sale. So they were going to be looking into that, and I'll seek a further update just to see where they've got to in terms of that sale. The principle, though, is that within the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, while we do tend to identify who the developer is, what councillors are being asked to support is the principle of that project coming forward for affordable housing, rather than necessarily the different developer. In some circumstances, it can change the tenure type. So, for example, building craftsmen are able to provide low-cost home ownership, whereas other providers have a mixture of different elements they can provide. We will obviously update members if there is a significant change, but the principle of the project being there is somewhat irrelevant to who's actually taking it forward within certain parameters. I think that in terms of the derelict buildings, obviously, we'd be keen to try and support colleagues in economic development with that piece of work. I'm not sure if that's something that sits with Melissa, or if Shelley's able to answer that point, because I see Melissa's had to dash away.
Thanks, Jamie. Yes, that would normally sit with Melissa, but I'll make sure that Melissa's aware of that for the next meeting.
Thanks for that. Sean, are you all right with that then? We'll get a future update in regards to that particular piece.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, thanks very much. I don't think I've got anybody else, have I? No, nobody else. Councillor Brodie, I don't know if you're feeling up to it. I thought you might have wanted to say a few words, just give you the opportunity here in regards to the Annan Harbour. If you're feeling up to it, Richard's just.
Yeah, obviously it's boosted my health and well-being, that announcement, because the Harbour Group's been working tirelessly for about 12 years just for this moment, and we were very disappointed when the first Levelling Up Fund bid didn't come to fruition, and it all seemed to happen very quickly. I got a sort of text on Friday from Alan Thompson, the Harbour Development Officer, to say, keep it under your hat, but there's an announcement on Monday, so that's great. So thanks to all the team in the council, Shelley and Melissa and Lauren, I think, has been working on it as well for their hard work, and to the Harbour Group, the Alan Thompson, the Harbour Development Officer, and all the trustees who have been very patient and kept forward when we got 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, but this is a huge step, and hopefully it'll be a great project for Annan. So thanks, Chair, for giving us that opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, well done, Richard. Onwards and upwards, I would say, and I would echo your sentiments in regards to the whole team effort and the efforts that everybody's put in. And the reassurance we got yesterday, I think, from Economy and Resources Committee was that would be sustained, again, if not even a greater emphasis now, because obviously we want to make sure that Annan Harbour is supported to the right level. So that
and I'd also like to thank Chairman, the Ward Officer, Jamie Nicholson, for her support as well.
Excellent. That's on record now then. That is absolutely on record that everybody there who's participated and helped is been thanked. Listen, I don't think I've got anything else other than suppose I'll pick up on that. So we've been asked at 2.1 is to review the overall summary performance with individual heads of service, business plans in Annandale and Eskdale, which we've done. 2.2 we've also done, which we consider the additional area-based success and developments detailed in key success sections of the success section of this report, paragraphs 4.6.1 to 4.6.16. Any other aspects is the 2.3. Take you up on your drone footage, Jamie, the bit that you mentioned. If you didn't mind, pass it on to either all members of the committee or to Stuart, who'll pass it on to us. Any other members got any other points they'd wish to take back to recommend to the Economy Resources? I've got MD. Well done. You've got off scot-free today. That's excellent. Right, if you don't mind, share that footage. And thanks again very much for all the efforts you put in and your presentations and answers today. Very much appreciated. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you. I think everybody's off there now. I'll just say to the members quietly that we've got a long straw and a short straw. One for Stephen and one for Caroline. We'll have to see. I'm not sure exactly where this will go. So ultimately, as a final report, is in relation to the Lockerbie Trust and the appointment of, from this committee, if at all possible, to fill that vacancy that's there. Tracy Sonko will answer any members' questions or address any members' comments. Tracy, same as everybody else, anything you want to say in regards to this report, or just ask questions?
Nothing to add. It's just the report that we normally bring whenever there's a vacancy arose, and this report will be the same as the report that came when we first appointed. Excellent. So there was two filled that just carried on over the change of administration. I think potentially wasn't for the previous council since the new council was formed. Ultimately, there's been a resignation, and we need. I take it Gail's not for that because she was the member that resigned. So we've got two other members that are in Annandale North, is my understanding, so we've got Councillor Stephen Thompson and Caroline Wilson. Lynn Davis is already a member, I think. So there's two members. Aye, so Lynn's already a member. I think there's two members on the Lockerbie Trust, is that correct? Aye, so Lynn's already a member. So we've got two potential nominees, and Archie's got his hand up. Councillor Driver. And Stephen has as well. Okay, Councillor Thompson, come in first.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, this is a sort of slightly unusual case because I think the Trust's effectively winding up. And, there's been some well-trailed activity about distributing the final amounts of funds, which I think we now have a kind of plan for McGerrow Park. I don't think, I don't think I'd be comfortable going on the Trust just to sign off kind of finishing up papers. And I think it's kind of winding up anyway. I'm sure Stuart will probably be able to advise correctly where that's at, but I wouldn't want to put myself forward for it. Thank you.
So We've just got a short straw then. Ultimately, we can appoint or not appoint. That is an option. Obviously, it's not outlined within the report, but I mean, it's an option still to appoint, Caroline. I don't know if, or Archie, do you want to?
Just to say, Chair, I didn't think we would be required to appoint. It's just there might just be a vacancy as in one trustee short, but take advice on that.
That's my understanding too, Stephen. But Councillor Wilson, Caroline.
I would be in a similar position to Stephen, given what's kind of went on within the Lockerbie Trust. But it just picking up on the point at 3.6 where it says each outside body has been allocated a council link officer. That's a reward officer, and they would normally attend these meetings, but they've actually been asked by the trust not to attend at least the last meeting, as far as I'm aware. So I wouldn't be comfortable going on to the trust if, you know, they're not following that anyway, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Absolutely, it is. It's almost like a governance question there, really. Tracy, I don't know, even Stuart. Stuart can answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the council link officer for each outside body that the council appoints to, you're quite right in that a link officer is appointed to support the elected members from whatever committee are making the nominations to sit on that outside body. In the case of the Lockerbie Trust, that link officer has supported the wider trust, the full trust, and all of the trustees in the work that they've been doing over the last number of years since he was in post. But that isn't a traditional mechanism that's in place across other trusts, and it's entirely up to the trust to determine how they're supported in terms of governance, administration, and action in anything that arises from trustees. But that's where there's perhaps that dubiety with this one, where the council link officer has in the past performed that function. Councillor Wilson is quite correct in that that role has kind of stopped over the last 12 to 18 months, and the trust have taken decisions and met without that link officer support or without that council officer support in place. But again, that's entirely for the trust to determine whether that's appropriate.
Thanks very much for that that governance reassurance, so to speak. So Caroline, is your name out of the hat, you're saying? Yep, and Councillor Thompson, you're the same, so therefore I would move we just don't appoint then. And I think that would be seen as reasonably competent. Aye, not to appoint. Right, Tracy? Yeah,
that's fine, Chair. We can leave that as a vacancy and let the trust know.
Okay, so I think the final decision that we made is that we chose not to appoint, and the trust will be informed of that particular thing, and that'll be a vacancy. Right, members, I definitely have no further business, but I do want a quick chat, if you don't mind, in regards to future agenda, how we're looking at that, especially after that workshop conversation that we had, and a couple of projects have been mentioned. So when we finish, if members can stay online, if that's okay, if you've got time, that is, you can stay online, and we'll have that short conversation in regards to agenda management. But thanks very much for everybody for the attendance up to now as far as the committee is concerned, and we will just stop recording.